Everyone, and welcome to today's session on education during COVID Way Forward. This session is organized by Exhibitions India Group, and we are a leading trade promotion organization in India. I would like to introduce the eminent speaker who have joined us today. We have Her Excellency Ms. Namrata S. Kumar, Ambassador of India and Slovenia. She'll be joining us in a bit. Dr. Jernej Pikalo, former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Science and Sports, Republic of Slovenia. Welcome, sir. Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe, Chairman, All India Council for Technical Education. Welcome, sir. I also welcome our moderator of the session, Architect Rajendra Kumar, Director, School of Architecture, Noida International University. Welcome, sir, and thank you for your continued support. This session is live on our Facebook page as well. The link is there in the chat box. All attendees are requested to send a question in Q&A box. We will take them towards the end of the session. And with this, Rajendra sir, I hand over the session to you.
Thank you so much, Aarti. It has been always great to be part of the sessions or any of the good things what Smart City Expo, your organization, always does. Today is a very important debate which we are going to start with about COVID and education, because we have such an eminent luminaries of education fraternity who have contributed on a global level. We have Dr. Pikalo Jernej. He's a good friend and we have been in touch from last couple of years. He was also the education minister in 2013 to 2014, March 2013 to September 2014, Republic of Slovenia. And again, he was Deputy Prime Minister of Republic of Slovenia in September 2018 to March 2020. He is a professor of political science. He's a professor in Center of Political Theory in University of Ljubljana. As an academician, also his contribution is immense in a European political domain and also on academic front. We also have a Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe. I mean, Indian education fraternity is blessed to have visionary Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe. In his tenure of technical education has seen a lot of heights and lot of improvement what Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe has brought in domain of Indian architecture, Indian technical education front. I would like to raise a point about COVID and education, because if we see in last maybe 1.5 years, one of the things which has been very serious debated on all medias and all those things, health, and then after health, when we talk about education has seen lots of high and down in this COVID pandemic. My agenda of today's discussion is mainly talking about whatever time we are facing with the COVID at present time, but what is happening about education post-pandemic, because these 1 or 2 years had been a very great learning for us, and I'm very sure that there are a lot of positive things also, but there are a lot of challenges also which world education is going to face in next coming days. So we are making a format of this session. We have a certain agenda point to discuss, and we'll have like a 30 to 35 minutes. We'll be discussing on certain points which I have framed the questions and will go. And after that, I will request all the live audience to bring some of the debate and live questions. Okay, to start with, I will have one very important agenda which I would like to reflect. I would like both of our eminent speakers.
I will just interrupt in between. We have Her Excellency joined us. Yeah.
Okay, so
welcome, ma'am.
Very, very good morning, Her Excellency, Ambassador Namrata, ma'am. If you can switch on your video, ma'am, are we having your video on also? Ambassador Namrata? So as soon as Aarti, if Excellency joins, so please let us know. So I'll go ahead with the schedule. Okay. So Aarti, my first point to both of our eminent speakers is that what are the major reform do you see in global education system after COVID-19 pandemic is over? So talking of, let's say, education reform 2020 onward. What are your take on it after learning of 1 or 2 year of period of this education paradigm shift of education system in pandemic time? So I will request Professor Picalo to start with, and then I will request Professor Anil to reflect on.
Okay. Thank you so much. First of all, for this invitation, I was really thrilled that I could be with you. It's still morning with me. It'll soon be noon, but with you, I guess it's the afternoon already. I have to say that a lot has changed, and changes will be, I see, nationally and globally. There is absolutely no doubt about it. If I can reflect what happened I mean, there's lots of things that went on, but let us start from the positive side. I mean, to me, and the way I observed the education system, this whole thing with digitalization and so on meant an enormous, I have to say, an enormous step forward in terms of digitization. This means anything from IT equipment to teachers getting all the things right. Because I remember in the first days of the pandemic, it was still it was a mess because it came so quickly, and it came with that force, and so all the students were at home and nothing worked, and so on. So in a year plus, I think we have been able to, get our act together. But above all, teachers have adapted to the situation. I see this mainly as an acceleration of what was happening there, because in my country, we had now for a decade or more programs on educating teachers in digitization, in how to use digital classrooms, and so on. So this is something that's been going on, I would say, at least since 2010. So for a decade, we were already doing this, but not to this extent. You see, not to this extent. And the way I see it, this has hugely accelerated what was already there. I'm always judging on four pillar structure, because I think 4 or 5 pillar structure is crucial when you're actually assessing on or what is going on in terms of digital. First, of course, is the question of infrastructure. So in our terms, we were quite lucky, because most of our schools, anything from primary, all the secondary, and so on, had fiber optics. But that did not, mean a lot when students are at home. So we needed different kind of infrastructure, and that was kind of semi-okay. My assessment is that my country has this done semi-okay. It's still very good, but then we could do it way better. Secondly, it's the teachers. How much skills do teachers actually have for this? As I said previously, I think the teachers have had skills developed in the past decade, but not for this kind, where you suddenly, almost overnight, move the whole thing online. That we were not prepared. Thirdly, and the third pillar is, how much content have you actually developed for this online education? Online, because not all contents. You see, to me, saying that you converted the usual file into PDF, it doesn't do the trick. That's not online learning. Having it just in PDFs.
Carlo, with all due respect, I will just request you to do a small pause. We have our Her Excellency, so I'm very sorry if I'm requesting you for pause. Excellency Namrata has joined, so Very good morning, Your Excellency, Ms. Namrata. I'm so, ma'am, you need to unmute your mic now.
Yeah, that's right. I'm unmute now, so can you hear me out, please?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I'll just request you to give your opening speech on this session about education during COVID and what are the way forward. I would just like to brief you what we have discussed in last 5 minutes. Ma'am, the concern about COVID is immense. I mean, globally, health or education or economy across the world. But here we have two great luminaries of education fraternity who have a great contribution in their respective countries on education front. So we are assembled here to discuss about what are the way forward after COVID. I mean, I'm talking about education in 2022 for 2023 onward. If I am assuming 2022, if there will be nothing like COVID. Apart from your contribution in a diplomatic circle, I mean, on a diplomatic level, you also have a great contribution in education fraternities in Uttarakhand during your tenure with the state government. You have made a major reform. So you are also one of the great flag bearer of education fraternity and education scenario in India and also on a global map. So I would request you to reflect on this theme about education during COVID and what are the way forward now. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Rajendra Kumarji, and thank you for having me. I'm so sorry that I got a bit delayed because of the technical glitch, but I'm here now. And with me, I mean, it's really a great pleasure to be here today with such great scholars and contributors in the field of education, like you mentioned, Dr. Yanis Pikalo from Slovenia and Dr. Anil Sasripade from India. Both of them have really contributed a lot, and I feel extremely privileged that before coming here and joining as an ambassador of India to Slovenia, I had a privilege of working with Dr. Anil Sasripade when I was Deputy Director General in ICCR and had a long association with him in academic with related to academic projects. So I'm really feel privileged to have worked with him and today to be with him. Similarly, having come here now, I feel extremely honored to be associated with Dr. Yanis Pikalo, who has not only been a scholar himself, but also has contributed in terms of policy making, policy maker in Slovenia's education sector and the government. So extremely privileged to be with them. Coming to the subject matter directly, Mr. Rajendra Kumar and my dear audience all over the world across various time zones. Yes, truly COVID-19 has, gripped the entire world very differently and changed the scenario completely, including the education sector. Almost kind of it brought everything to standstill. We have not just in one country, but in this context have uniformly faced several challenges. But we have emerged out well. And I just want to start by saying that COVID pandemic and related consequences came to us like a sudden jolt, but we should just take it as, one different phase of our lives and just move ahead, finding solutions for that. With this approach, if we move ahead, I think finding solutions will be easier. And that's what all of us as a global community have tried to do and came out with several solutions. Late since 2019, coming to education sector especially, when the universities and schools were all shut and almost about 1.2 billion of children at the school level could not attend the school, just physical attendance was altered. Suddenly, pandemic changed the education system dramatically with distinctive rise in e-learning, whereby teaching and learning in the remote form became the prime way of learning and imparting education. So, what is it that we have learned, and how can we take it forward? But let me also mention one very important thing, which COVID pandemic situation brought to fore and brought the importance about to the light of everybody throughout the world, and that is the importance of distance education. Mind you, distance education was already in practice, but distance education or long distance remote learning was never seen so respectfully. Uh, Attending universities, physical attendance in classes, going to good quality institutions was always seen very respectful. And we had institutions like IGNOU, open universities, much before in India, which were imparting these distance educations. But neither were the institutions nor the students who were taking education in these institutions were seen as respectfully. But COVID-19, I would say, has brought that whole importance to the fore uh, as the most adaptive strategy at the moment, where the education continues for the children without any fault. Uh, but what are the challenges now? Distance education was happening earlier also. Now the challenges with us are imparting this education in remote ways at the mass level, providing access to all. Uh, Distance has become mandatory to all. It is no more as an option, but how can we, attend to this mass level access, providing challenge in the current times or in the times to come. Several universities and education institutions, also the private private players in the education sectors came up with several solutions. For example, um, like the Byju's and the Alibabas and the Tencent classroom in China, and Singapore-based Lang collaboration, also universities in the US. There are states which are coming up with solutions. Also, the media persons like BBCs have come up with innovative programs, and Coursera, of course, we know about that. But these have been all in isolated form, and so now the challenge is that how can we bring them together in a structured form and give a structure to distance learning. That is what is something of importance, I think, at the moment. Also, there are questions of like efficacy of distance learning. How effective are these mechanisms? But we have research showing that distance learning, in fact, is more effective for students because they are learning in a more flexible manner and more relaxed manner than otherwise they do in the classroom manner. So the retention power has grown when it comes to remote learning. And like the vice president of Tencent Education has mentioned, and I would quote him, that while some believe that the unplanned and rapid move to online learning with no training and insufficient bandwidth and little preparation will result in poor user experience that is unconducive and to sustain growth. Others believe that new hybrid models of education will emerge with significant benefits, and integrating more and more information technology with a conventional education system will become the new norm. When we think about the pandemic and use of information technology and integrating it in our education system, uh, what I feel is post-pandemic strategies for us should focus most importantly on how to provide the structure to the independent and isolated or country-wise solutions that we have come up with. And for this we should focus on, in my view, about 4-5 important aspects, and those are starting with access to.
Okay, so I believe that we will. You can text her personally the message that I will request her to be with us. Maybe we can also have her during our live question answer interaction session. So Aarti, I will request you to please just text her also on her WhatsApp. You have her.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll come back again to Professor Charnes. Ambassador has raised some very important point, and I can see that there are some echo between her statement and your statement also. Ambassador, can we go ahead with our session? We will also request you to be with us during the session so that we can also have your comment also during the live interaction. I am seeing there are a lot of very interesting questions coming by audience on Facebook Live. So, Ambassador, can we go ahead for the our panelists, please, with your permission, ma'am? I believe
I think some
ma'am is
connection
having
issue. Please go ahead, Rajendra sir. Please go ahead.
So, Professor Piccolo, I believe that you have raised some point which are also echoing with the ambassador comment also. So, at this point, I believe in the interest of time, I will request to reflect on the point by Professor Anil. So, Professor Anil, over to you about the same point which we have discussed as a key one of our first agenda. What the major reform do you see in a global education after COVID pandemic? I'm talking 2020 or 22 onward or something like that. Over to you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Rajendra Kumar. I'll very carefully listen to Dr. Picardo as well as Madam Namrata Kumar, Ambassador of India to Slovenia, on the issue of what actually happened immediately after COVID. And we all witnessed that, not only in India, in Slovenia, but all over the globe. People who were not prepared had to suddenly jump into and then start online classes. There were examples, of course, of use of internet for education in some way or the other, starting from Khan Academy, MIT edX and Coursera courses on the MOOC platform to our own indigenous Indian platform called Swayam, which has today more than 12.5 million users from about 114 countries, and there are as many as 2,650 courses which we have already delivered. So I think in some way or the other, online education had begun in some way or the other. Localized way through use of Moodle or LMS systems within the university, something was happening, but not exhaustively. And order of the day was always education means we have to come to the classroom, and between teachers and students, a strong interaction, which is very important in understanding the difficulties of the students and try to solve them. That was the education all about. But this pandemic suddenly forced upon us that we must have no choice, because we are not able to come physically, we must start online classes. And now today, right from nursery, KG to primary, high school to university, education is all happening online in the last 1.5 years. And we have learned lessons, the difficulties, the challenges that every country has faced. It is not that only countries like India, who are so-called developing countries, or some of the underdeveloped countries from African nation or somewhere in Asia are only sufferers. Even the most advanced countries like US have also had their cup of problems. That means the bandwidth, the connectivity, and by sitting in Delhi here, sometimes I lose connectivity. So if that is the case, how our students in remote areas are going to be educated? So this is a real challenge. So multimodal operation is what we have been doing, and we need to continue to do it till a very robust internet connectivity reaches nooks and corners, and every hamlet in the remotest village, tribal village also we reach there. And that is happening. BharatNet is one of the programs under which connectivity, fiber net connectivity with gigabit bandwidth is reaching to all corners. Today, almost all villages are covered, not all, of course, and that's why that is the priority. The second issue is that of the devices. Not everyone would be in a position to buy a smartphone or a laptop or a PC, but that is a device which is required for to and fro communication. Those who can afford, they must buy them. Those who cannot, probably government has a responsibility of providing devices either through whatever you call as like scholarships, you give them to buy these devices, or some people can be given loan so that they buy it and then probably pay it back after they graduate. So all kind of variety of schemes are possible. And the third important part is that of how even society pitches in to help. We have already corporate social responsibility. Formally, 3% of the profit is to be shared for all variety of social activities. The companies can buy devices and provide them. Or every year, large number of IT companies. India is an IT superpower. Our NASSCOM has thousands of small and big companies. For example, 4 largest companies in software are all from India. TCS, Wipro, Infosys, Cognizant. I think each one of these companies with lakhs of employees, there are hundreds of thousands of employees, churn out new computers every year because the old ones are outdated 3 years, 4 years down the line. They cannot serve their purpose. Why can't they donate them to the villages? I think there are multiple ways. Even some of us who are middle class and above, who have multiple mobile phones, smartphones in our residences, when a new model comes, we buy. We are attracted towards that. What about the old one? Why can't I give it to a school child in my neighborhood who cannot afford to buy it? I think there will be hundreds of mechanisms by which we can provide access, we can provide devices, and then the education can certainly continue in the online mode. I only hope this pandemic should be over and we should again come back to the classroom mode. That is important. Ultimately, human beings are social animals. Person-to-person contact, integration of our thought processes, whether it is in terms of art forms, painting, music, dance, drama, all of this cannot happen in an online mode. We can certainly give some delivery of lectures and students can listen. All of those possibilities do exist, but if a holistic education is to happen, if a student has to play on the playground and then develop his physics or her physics, has to do a lot of internalization of the learning that is happening through plays and drama. That is what life is all about. And therefore, we must come back to the normal university, college education, school education. But till that happens, we must go on with the technology that has enabled us to do all of this. Secondly, having learned the use of technology, even after we go back to the normal, face-to-face mode of education, some component can continue in the online mode. That is what we are calling often as blended learning or blended mode of learning, or also called flipped classrooms. I think that is important because whatever we do, every school or college cannot have excellent faculty in all the areas. Our school may have good geography teacher or a history teacher, but I don't have a good mathematics teacher. And therefore, using technology, how a child can be empowered to take classes of mathematics from the best teacher available, not in the country, but the whole world. I think that is the possibility of technology, which we have experimented today, and we have learned the lessons, and we must make use of both. I think that is where I stop right now, and then we'll answer more on what we have been able to do during pandemic. That are very interesting stories that I will narrate a little later.
Thank you so much, Professor Anil. I believe that many things come from your heart, which I can, as I have been knowing you, and I know your good work, what you are doing for your organization and also for in India. I mean, the statement why the corporate don't donate the computer initiative, and I believe the corporate should do something. You also touch about CSR issues. Definitely, I believe that we should do that. When we are living in Delhi and we are having a difficulty, imagine the remote situation where there is electricity also come very not very frequently. So I will move to next question to Professor Piccolo, and then I will again request Ambassador to reflect on. Okay, I will request Professor Piccolo. I have some of the very important point where Ambassador left in between because of this technical glitch. Professor Piccolo, I'll come back again to you. I'm sorry for a little bit more time for returning back to you. I will request if Ambassador Excellency Namrata Kumar, if she can also reflect some of the points which she left in between. Over to you, Ambassador Namrata ma'am.
And I'm sorry because of this technical glitch, and we are all talking about digital use of technology for learning, but technology sometimes ditches us. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly and briefly touch upon few points in post-pandemic times, and which Professor Sasrabudhe has already mentioned some of them. Very importantly, which I was trying to emphasize on, was the access of technology. And unless the access is available to all the people who are in the learning age group, then the very mandate of SDG, that is education for all, will not be possible unless we provide technology and its access, equitable access to all. When we talk about equitable access, we also have to think about how affordably this technology could be provided to all the people. Unless the access cost decreases and quality of access increases in all the universities, the gap in education quality will continue. Digital platform, use of technology to meet the challenges of pandemic times have been very useful, but they should not be counterproductive in the sense that in order to provide solution for one aspect, we end up creating a big digital divide between the haves and have-nots, between those who have technology and between those who do not have technology. For example, about 95% of students in Switzerland, Norway, Austria have access to computer and internet. But that is not the case in, let's say, many of the least developed countries. Even within the developed countries such as US, there are sections which are disadvantaged and do not have access to the technology. So this is very important. Secondly, how do we, adapt our pedagogical systems? How do we develop our course curriculum and make it more based on technology, use of technology? So when I talk about pedagogy, it is very important that how we also prepare our teachers, because we are focusing on students at the moment, how do they take the education lessons, but equal emphasis has to be given to the educators, to the teachers. How do they understand and adapt to the teaching learning methods in the digital era, using complete virtual platform? How to engage students on the virtual platform? It is not very easy. It is quite challenging. While the students may find online platform very easy and to retain the lessons, but it may be really challenging for the teachers to use various techniques and engage their audience, engage their students. So a lot of work on the pedagogical tools. How do we structure our examination, evaluation, and certification methods? How do the online courses, which students which earn certificates through these courses get recognized? All this is very important to see in the post-pandemic times, meaning giving the entire structure to the online method of teaching, or coming up with hybrid methods where part can be in the physical form or part can be in digital form. Lastly, of course, it is about the education industry and funding, because while the private entities are coming up with solutions, but they end up, like expensive solutions. So how can the state come in and do the funding? Professor Sastryapati just mentioned that in this context, Government of India really had taken up a very important initiative last year, that is Swayam Prabha, which is satellite based, and that addresses the matter twofold. First, that it is, even if you do not have internet, through satellite or television, we can take education to maximum number of students, even to the remote villages. Secondly, that the access becomes equitable. It goes till the last child that we are trying to target. And of course, then there we have to come up with the models for private public-private partnerships in this sector also, while becoming very innovative. Lastly, I just want to leave 2 points to ponder upon. First is, like Professor mentioned, that there is no substitute for physical learning, because it's not just about students coming to university and learning in the physical environment, actual environment, but it is about also learning many other social skills as the children grow up and learn to lead the life in future. So what happens about learning of the social skills at the time of taking their university or school education? How can we be creative in the digital times to impart such skills? So that is something we have to come up with creative models wherein the family and the friends and peer groups have to pitch in to fill that gap. And lastly, now that during the COVID times, we are approaching education as a process of dealing with imparting of education without compromising health factor. So here, education and health, the two sectors, which are also two critical SDGs that every country is focusing on, but they were being focused as not so much integrated sectors. Is it time now, from the pandemic, that we have understood and learned that we have to start planning our system in a manner that both health and education is planned and executed in an integrated manner, at least at the educational, at the school or higher education level? So that is one last point I would just leave as a matter of thought to be, for people to ponder upon. Thank you with this, and of course, thanks for additional time, and I will look forward for questions now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and I'm very much touched with the depth of your knowledge and your personal interest in education. You also discuss about the point of SDG 4, education for all. Yes, this is also the point which is in our agenda to discuss. You also discuss about the importance of a social skill. Yes, we, as Professor Piccolo mentioned in his speech, that overnight we had to switch from physical class to internet, and how difficult it was. Just imagine a year back. There are many expert faculties who were very good, very good faculties, but when they were told to switch overnight internet, how difficult it was. And I believe that I give compliment to whole education fraternity all over world, not only India and Slovenia respectively. Everybody coped up in a very rapid, fast time. But as Ambassador has also mentioned, there are some issues about challenges. Now I'll come back to Professor Piccolo on this aspect. Sir, you have been part of academic fraternity. You are also a very renowned professor also, but at the same time you have been also the part of the policy making side. You served as a education minister. You served also as a Minister of Science and Sports, where Ambassador mentioned very important point about another segment, health. And then also you are also part of, at present also you're part of faculty, you are professor in university. So, sir, what do you see the challenges of converting a digital mode of education? When I'm saying that, what are the challenges? Yes, as as Ambassador Namita mentioned about the point about that, earlier there was also a digital education system was existing decades back or long back. But certain kind of education were not part of even in the dream also, like for example medical education, or for that matter engineering education, or creative profession also. But when we shift to digital, everything went digital, sir. Even the doctors were also learning digitally also, which is touch and feel, that's all. So where do you see challenges, sir? Here I will request you to reflect also as an educationist point of view also, and at the same time also, since you are part of a policy making the mechanism also. So where do you see a challenge, and do you think that we need to do something major reform? Everything I'm talking about post-COVID.
Yeah.
Over to you first, Picalo.
Thank you. I would say in four things. First of all, something that both of my colleagues have talked about, and that is the preparedness. That is the digital skills of the educators. This is to me the main challenge. Why? Because not all things, and you're right, medicine, all kinds of physiotherapy, a lot of things that you cannot learn, simply cannot learn online. You can come close, but there will never be this kind of education that could be completely done online. And with this, there's a huge issue of recognition of certificates. I remember before, when we were discussing this on the European level, and so on, we were discussing online education. One of the things was that the final examination, the end examination, was always meant to be in person. Why in person? Because this is the last checkup. If you have electrician, if you have someone working then in your house or doing something like that, he or she should know. He or she should be examined, not just online, but hands-on, as we say. So when we were discussing previously, I'm talking 5 years ago and so on. When we were discussing previously, we always strived for the for the education that can be done online to an extent, if it can be, but then the final examination is done not online, but rather in the in person, because this is a quality assurance. Quality assurance is one of the biggest issues in this. And then of course comes the recognition of diplomas. Here I think we've done recognition of certificates. Here I think we still have a long way to go, but in this globalized world, in the world where people migrate here and there, it's a big and it's a global issue. How are we going to have this global certification if we can ever think about it? Of course, if you do online, it doesn't matter if this course is in India or in the US or in Canada or whatever. It's just a question whether this certificate from Canada or Argentina will then later on be recognized as such in your home country or in any other country. So what we are talking about, what we should be looking at, is a global recognition framework for the certificates. This is one of the things that this whole pandemic, and it's also a way forward, has brought to all of us. Maybe one more thing that I see as a future challenge. We all know that technology is progressing. We all know that we've been faced with COVID, we've been faced with now with digitalization and so on. But there is also artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is coming. It can be helpful. It can help us in a lot of ways, also with education. I agree with my predecessors that it will not solve the soft skills. It will not solve the movement of bodies, if you want, like physical education and so on. It cannot solve the non-cognitive skills which are also taught in a school. It cannot solve the social issues that are maybe solved or at least alleviated in the school, etc., etc. But artificial intelligence can add in certain processes, not in all, but in certain processes of education. And again, artificial intelligence is not something that would be Indian or Slovenian or Canadian or whatever, but it's something that we all together as a humanity must work on, and to ensure that we have as much as possible, the benefits out of it. Again, we don't want things to happen like they were happening before and are still happening, and that is that this divide, that is first of all social divide that gets into the digital divide, and that now we would have even bigger divide with countries that can go along this technological progress in terms of AI, but then again, on the other hand, countries that can't are lagging behind, cannot even do the primary and secondary education as it should be, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, on one hand we have technological challenges, lots of technological challenges, but also opportunities, a lot of opportunities. We have for some of them we can foresee maybe global even solution, or at least regional solutions. But then again, the school is not just learning the contents, but it's also cognitive, soft skills, physical education, and so on. So for that, we need a different approach, and it cannot be, and it will not be done online. Maybe one more thing that we're seeing with our children. Our children have grown, I'll say it very frankly, obese because of the even more sedentary way of living than before. And secondly, also psychological issues that they are having are greater than ever. We had two researchers done, one on the primary level of education, one on the university level of education, and psychological problems that the students are facing are bigger. They have gone up. Anything from anxieties to even suicidal thinking. So that needs to be taken into account when we are discussing the future and what does the school and the school system do to the society as such.
Thank you so much, sir. I believe that it's a very good point you mentioned about the issues of recognition of certificate and degree. I believe that is going to be the challenge. I mean, in India also we are facing. I mean, even to give you update about even the examination which have happened in one year, and even the examination which will happen this year also. That's also being a little bit. I mean, there is a discussion going on that whether the graduate of 2020 or graduate of 2021 will have advantage or disadvantage comparing the graduate of 2018 or 17 and all. And I believe that's a very important point which we need to think about it. And policy makers like you also, if you are aware about it, that's a good sign. Of course, we need to find out solution. So I'll come back again to Professor Anil. Sir, your reflection on this point is specifically talking about policy making side, sir. Professor Anil, I'll request you to.
Yeah, I think very beautifully it has been put forward by both Madam Namrata as well as Dr. Piccolo about the need for life skills and non-cognitive skills which have to be also incorporated in education, which cannot happen through online. But this pandemic, unfortunately, we thought it will be over, but it is continuing, second wave, and there are possibilities of third wave we talked about. Therefore, the judicious mix of online as well as face-to-face is the order of the day, at least for a couple of years. And then subsequently, we must continue with using technology for enablement, empowerment of children who are away from mainstream places, but still they want to learn. I think this is the only way they can do it. That's why there is a judicious blend of technology as well as classroom teaching learning is what is going to be required and necessary. Now, coming to the certification and recognition, I think one of the challenges in the online is the competencies that are desired to be achieved by the graduates or the graduate outcomes, which we can easily test them, evaluate them in a classroom mode of examination where they are not able to, what you say, copying or someone else's answer script is being seen by someone else. That is checked by the proctoring that happens in an evaluation system, in an examination. In an online mode, there are bigger challenges in respect of that. Has the student achieved those outcomes which were desired? I think, therefore, there is a challenge, but also challenges give rise to opportunities. Let me reflect on some of the things which have already happened in the past, before pandemic as well. For example, Microsoft has its own certification program. Do they give education in the physical space? No, they were all online. But still, whether a student was in a position to do programming or not was tested. The outcomes were tested. And after the certification, your normal engineering degree, if you have X level of employment opportunity or the salary package, etc. But if you have add-on certification by IBM or Microsoft or Google, you will have a package which is double X, 2X or X plus Y or so. So that means certification already has importance. In fact, Google CEO has recently said that we least bother about the college or university certificates. If someone has those abilities, we will do it. So there have been already technologies which have been used for testing of students. Now, coming to one of the very important aspects which Dr. Piccolo raised was that of use of AI. There are tremendous opportunities. I wanted to say something which we have already been doing for the last 2 years. This is NEET 1, NEET 2. NEET stands for National Educational Alliance for Technologies. And we have already moved on from level 1 to level 2 and in the process of level 3. So these are all product companies, small and big, startups and multinational companies who have had, putting in AI experience in education. And they have developed products where a student is tested in the beginning, his level of understanding, to what extent he knows that subject, and a personalized learning journey is provided to the student in trying to achieve the final end result as per what is required to be achieved. So I think these are all possibilities which already exist. We have about 200 odd companies. They all are commercial products, and therefore there is a small fee attached to this. Although there is a fee attached to this, we have gone ahead for social responsibility perspective that the product, once sold to 4 students, 1 free seat has to be given to AICT and MHRD, or now Ministry of Education, which we will distribute to socially deprived sections of the society, be it SC/ST students, be it financially poor students. This free seat is going to be distributed. And there will be equal opportunity given to all sections of the society. And these are the products through which students can learn any subject in a personalized manner, individually, depending on the level of achievement that a student already has, his own understanding of the subject. He can have a comfortable journey reaching the same level, but someone may do it in 1 month, someone may do it in 3 months. But the product, once purchased, will take you through that journey. Maybe a shorter journey or a longer journey, but you will achieve the same level of competencies at the end of the day. I think these are all possibilities through artificial intelligence. We have machine learning, we have 3D printing, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality. All of these technologies will aid students in furthering the learning process. I'm particularly talking about AR, VR, XR. The reason is many times our one of the things which happens is, you talked about medical education a little while earlier, Rajendra Kumar. In engineering also you talked about. AICT itself was so rigid that we used to say that engineering education cannot be delivered in an online mode. But at least now we say 30%, 40% can certainly be given in an online mode, including laboratory classes. We have virtual labs in India which have been developed more than a decade ago. All variety of experiments can be done in the simulation mode. And add on to that the technology of augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, you would give an experience which is better than a normal laboratory experience. In a normal laboratory experience, for example, in mechanical engineering, running of an internal combustion engine, a turbo machine or a pump, what we do is we supply power, it runs, we take down readings and then analyze that. We don't know what is happening inside. But through AR and VR, we can ask the student to get into it, get immersed in the experiment. He will travel, he will rotate along with the blades of the turbine. I think that is an enriching experience of understanding what are the levels of stresses that are induced during that time, which is not possible even in a physical experiment. So there are some very strong technology inputs which are required and which can be possibly done, and we have done it in India. Thousands of simulation-based experiments, remote-controlled experiments. So even laboratory classes can be held. But nevertheless, we will still say that there is a physical space which is important, which I said earlier also. For giving an example of a pilot who is trained on a simulation and give him a Boeing and say that you fly it. I don't know whether he is confident of doing it, or at least passengers will certainly say we will not sit in this flight. And therefore, as a co-pilot, as a pilot, and some flying hours after he or she has put in that pilot's aircraft only we will be willing to sit in. And therefore, there is a value to technology and how we can enable, how we can empower. But most essential part is final, what rightly Piccolo was saying, that final examination should be in the physical space. I think that is one very, very critical and very important point he raised. And therefore, after a pilot does everything studying, at least he should fly an actual aircraft without passengers for 1 hour, 2 hours, land it properly, and then we can sit in his aircraft. I think that is the end point, end game in this.
Thank you so much, Professor. I believe that with your statement, I can also do I can experience some of my personal experiences also. I remember in 2019, when the COVID name was not existing in our domain, I was part of one conference where we were talking about this online mode, and I quoted one example that दाल में नमक अच्छी लगती है, नमक में दाल नहीं. I mean, for Piccolo, Professor Piccolo, I would like to translate it that you can do a dressing of salad, but you cannot make a salad by dressing. So that is one thing which were our stand, I believe, 2 years back. But as Professor Anil has mentioned, that we have done a lot, we have changed a lot. I believe Professor Anil can also remember the situation of when IGNOU was trying to put up engineering courses, and architecture courses was also initiated by IGNOU. Professor Piccolo, for your information, IGNOU is like a body of Indian education body which regulate basically a distance education in India. So yes, with these very thought-provoking statements by respective luminaries, we come to conclusion of the session. I have one last point which I will request all the speakers to reflect on very briefly, sir, because I'm also trying to keep it last 10 minutes for taking some questions by live audiences also. My last point, which I'm combining 2 points together, and I will request all the speakers to reflect very briefly, let's say 1 or 2 minutes. I'll start with Ambassador, and then I'll come Professor Piccolo, and then I'll come to Professor Anil. My statement goes like this. In last one year, we have, because during the pandemic time, 3 words which are like a very, very common: health, education, and economy. What are your comment on that? And in the end, also you can also conclude, since we have a eminent speaker from 2 very great countries, India and Slovenia. where do you see India and Slovenia in the domain of education policy reform? So, two questions to all the three speakers. I will request Ambassador Narmata to comment on, and I request all the speakers to be a little bit brief so that we have some good time for interaction with the audience.
Thank you, Rajendra ji. Like I mentioned earlier, when we talk about education and health, and now bringing economy also an element into that, since COVID has brought the health aspect also to front to the fore, should we start thinking, planning, integrating the planning of health as well as education together? That would be my point once again to think upon, and also explore the possibilities of economic opportunities in integrating health and education both. So that is one thing. I mean, rest of the people can reflect upon that. Coming to your second point, that how Slovenia and India can share their experiences. I think both the countries have lots of strengths within them to share, and like in the context of vaccine Maitri and health, we have globally all the countries come together to address the health emergency. I think in the context of education also, whatever every country is doing in their respective countries, it would be nice to come globally together to share their experience. Coming to Slovenia and India specifically, India can share its experience in the terms of how to take the education to the last student in the remote area. How have we managed to do that? In the context of Slovenia, I think Slovenia is known for its scientific and research environment, and how successfully they have integrated artificial intelligence in every sector of their functioning, whether it is education, health, or anything. So that is one big strength that Slovenia has to offer. And I think if we have a global program of sharing our best practices, that every country has come together, whether it is certification or pedagogy or whatever, I think we should be able to come up with a structured solution for everybody. Thank you.
I think, ma'am, thank you so much. I believe that there is a good sign of initiative like Erasmus Plus, which is also connecting Europe and India. And I believe that I think the time is coming when we need to act specifically about certification issues and all. We need to look at the whole policy system in a different. So I'll come back to Professor Piccolo on the same point, and then we will go for live question after Professor statement. Professor Piccolo?
I'm always saying that if education is a talk of the society, that is good. Because usually there are other topics in general public that are being discussed, at least with us. And what we've seen in this COVID years is an enormous, interest in education. Why? Because parents saw, but also students saw that something they have taken for granted, and that is this whole. With us, this is the biggest social subsystem there is, with the biggest number of participants and so on. And usually they think that it just works out of its own, fine, like an automation, but it doesn't. It takes a lot of steering it and so on. And now when they saw that this is not the case, and that we need to discuss education, the purposes of education, and so on, that is only good. I very much agree with Her Excellency on combining health, education, and also economics. What we are adding to that is obviously always a social issue, because to us, school is, besides the education, is also has a social element. And this is where health and other issues come in. About the both countries, there's so much to offer, and then so much to work together. I guess India is a global powerhouse in technology. This is something that we can definitely learn from. What we have, in my opinion, let's say good, if you want me to single out one thing, is this continuous education and re-education throughout the career of teachers. We have developed a system that works anywhere from kindergartens to university teachers. It's a whole, lifelong learning, so to speak. The whole system of rewards and so on. How the teachers are being kept up to date. How this works. What kind of institution you need, and so on. So. But on the mutual front, on the global level, we spoke about recognition of diplomas. We didn't speak so much today, but there is this whole area of open educational resources, where we can work together for the deployment of open educational resources to those that maybe have more difficulties in education. Then there is a whole issue with SDGs 4 about equity, girls' education. There's so many issues that we can, if we join forces, we can so much do together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Before I come to Professor Anil about his comment for the last point, Professor Anil, with your permission, if you want, I would like to tell you that since you have mentioned in the chat about your email ID, I would like to update you that here we have a less participation, but we have a more participation on Facebook Live. So if you permit, I can spell it out your email ID for all for benefit of the people who are joining us on Facebook Live. Or you can yourself also announce with your email and your statement, because on WebEx Cisco we have a less audience, but on Facebook Live we have almost like 1,000 people watching us on live. So that is a piece of information I would like to share. You can also announce your email ID or also. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rajendra Kumar. I'm always open. My website has my email ID. Probably the person did not see it, so I posted it on the chat bar. No, but anyone can look at it, and I'm announcing it is chairman@aicte-india.org. And my commitment is I answer to everyone individually, personally, not from my secretary or so on. And it takes a lot of time from me, but I do it. Then coming to the question which was on hand about education, health, and economy. SDG 4 is very important, no doubt. But all 17 Sustainable Development Goals are some way or the other linked with education. So in fact, education, I believe, is the number one, most important and significant. It connects to everyone. Like formally we say connecting the dots. So actually education connects with health, education connects with economy. Education connects with agriculture, education connects with empowerment. Education connects with environment, education connects with creating entrepreneurs, creation of jobs. So ultimately, education is the one which leads us to life actually in the future. And that's why all linkages have to be made use of through education, whether it is creating startups or entrepreneurial abilities, whether it is agricultural system, environment, so important for us today. Now, all of them have to be taught in the school, including health and economy. So that is how we grow. AICT has started 2 divisions, very important. And one is innovation. So without innovation, we cannot prosper. And the second is our own ancient Indian wisdom, which is Indian knowledge systems. I think both these 2 important things, which for the past 5,000, 6,000 years, whatever Indian knowledge system was there, the world has to know about it. In COVID times, it has come to reality that whether it is Ayurveda, whether it is yoga, which has come handy, and that's what we have been practicing for ages. I think, therefore, education of Indian knowledge systems as well as innovation is also equally important. Now, last bit is about what we did during pandemic. I think these are phenomenal things. Of course, we have a huge population and the need is so large that we had under Atal Academy, AICT's Training and Learning, ATAL, Atal Academies, we conducted faculty development programs in emerging areas of AI, IoT, machine learning, deep learning, robotics, 3D printing, AR, VR, cyber security, cloud computing, blockchain, all of these areas which are so significant for technical education and other general education as well. And through 948 full 5-day workshops, they are all 5-day workshops, we have trained 165,000 teachers in India. And now there is a great demand. School teachers are demanding. Other countries from Africa and many other European nations are saying that we also attend. And most importantly, this being online, the number of people trained in one workshop has been of the order of 200. Otherwise, we used to train for only 50 people in one workshop in the physical space. Now it has expanded to 200, 300. And experts are also drawn from all over the world, from the far east of Australia, New Zealand, Japan, to the far west, America, Canada, and the Europe. Faculty can be drawn from anywhere, only timeline difference is there, and that we able to match. Someone is requested to come in night and give a lecture, they are willing. And I think we have been able to get the best possible resource, and this is a Guinness Book of World Record. Just about a fortnight ago, we had a training of students in Python, and also creating application in face recognition. And in one day, we wanted to train 10 lakh, but unfortunately, only 6 lakh students registered, and 1,24,000 students completed, and we have another Guinness Book of World Record in our pocket. All possible use of technology. And I think that is the power we should explore, we should use. And there will be challenges, there are problems, but we will overcome all of them.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, in the concluding part of the session, I'm taking few of the questions which I have taken from Facebook Live also and all. One question, and I believe that in this question, Ambassador Namrata ma'am can really answer it, and I'll also request Professor Anil also to come on that. There's a question by Aditya Kumar. He asked that I wanted to know your opinion about online school board assessment for examination. Do we anticipate a full 100% online examination assessment? Will school customer examination during a journey go online? Ma'am, why I have mentioned that you are the best person to answer this question, because we all have seen your great work during your tenure with the school system in Uttarakhand. For Professor Pikalo, Uttarakhand is one of the region in northern India, of northern part of India. So, ma'am, you have done a great contribution in the grading system of education of state board. So, do you think that it is possible to go for online education board, similar like what IGNOU has for higher education, ma'am? So what is your comment, ma'am?
Thank you, Rajendra ji, for your kind words, always mentioning about my work in Uttarakhand. Thanks a lot. Online board is possible. That's not a problem. But it comes to, again, because board is managing the entire education system, schooling, teaching, conducting exams, issuing certificates. So online board is not a problem. It's a structure that has to be put in online. But only thing is how to conduct classes, how to specially conduct those classes which require physical presence. For example, the laboratory based subject matters, life sciences, physics, chemistry, all those things, how to conduct those, how to conduct exams for those, and then evaluate and then give certificates. So my proposal here would be like those subjects which can be 100% conducted online can definitely be done on a virtual platform, but those which do require physical presence, maybe the way we have adapted ourselves to social distancing. Social distancing is not a right word. Physical distancing. We can conduct smaller classes, smaller in number, in physical distance, and likewise in a hybrid format, rather than having classes of 40s and 50s, we can bring down the number of classes, conduct those physically, and then conduct exams in the smaller numbers. So this is about conducting classes, conducting exams, and then of course, board and online board is always possible to manage all these things.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to extend a little bit this question to our international speaker also. As with Professor, we are discussing also that, okay, when we talk about online education or globalization of education, at least we can globalize it, higher education on a little bit wider spectrum. In India, we have also seen, or maybe with many of the European countries have also seen that the student or recent graduate goes global, let's say for masters or for bachelor, but after education, after primary education. But when we talk about primary education, when I'm talking primary education, I'm talking about kindergarten to high school level and all those things. That is a very, very local level. It's a very contextual. So where do you see a problem, sir, if we integrate even online education, even in a primary education also? I'm talking about kindergarten or primary or high school education also. Do you see a challenge, or do you recommend it, or you would like to raise some flag on the here, sir?
My take is maybe not a flag, but there would be some reservations. Why? Because as we see with, it's not just a technical issue, but as we see with young children, they're not, they can be tech savvy, but they had, at least where I'm coming from, they had the biggest issue, when they're not literate yet. And now when they're not literate yet, and to go online and to do that sort of things, that's a little bit difficult. Plus, I always think that they need to learn national local language, so that is a pre-requirement. So we wouldn't. I wouldn't like that. My future compatriots would not speak Slovenian anymore; that they would just speak English, and that would be. And would know nothing about Slovenia, its culture, and so on. So as we progress along the along the ladder, I think the more we go to higher education, to university, postgraduate degrees, and so on, the more globalized it can actually be. And this is how we also stage our system. Where the more you go towards PhD, the more open basically it is, and even our national system is bringing in components from other parts of Europe, but also world. So it's basically opening up. So at least flagging, if not something else. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. We have exceeded almost a half an hour time, and I know that Professor Pikalo has also some commitment post lunch in Europe, and Professor Anil has just sent a message because he had to go for another meeting with ICCR, and so he disconnected from us, and now I would like to read his last message for all the audience who are on Facebook Live. Professor Anil Shast, with this suggestion for nature of examination has to change based on Bloom taxonomy. Very valid point, sir. 100% I agree, sir. So Bloom, based on a Bloom taxonomy, so that each student get a different interesting question and challenges him or her, then that can be online examination. It is like a open book examination, and I am very, very, very much seconding your point, Professor Anil sir. With this note, I would like to conclude this session. I would like to extend my thanks to Professor Janice Pikalo. I mean, you have taken out time for your busy schedule. I had a great time when I visited Slovenia last time, meeting you, meeting with all the dignitaries, President Mr. Pahor also. We had a great time together, and thank you so much, sir, for being with us. Thank you so much, Ambassador Namta ma'am. It's always great to connect with you, ma'am. For vote of thanks, I would like to go back to Aarti again. So, Aarti, over to you, please.
Thank you, sir. I just would like to convey our thanks to Her Excellency and Dr. Jarnish. Thank you for your time. I think
you.
1 hour is really less to have, a discussion on this important topic. Maybe we'll do a second round of this.
Yes, we can do it.
And a short summary of this session will be available for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.